Welcome to the morning after 2023 season preview on our 30th year of the CFFL. We have a helper right here. Name's Evelyn. You may remember her from the draft lottery. Just finished her first day of kindergarten. Emma finished her first day of 5th grade, and also Miss Winnie here. Let's see here.
Can you go show everybody? Earrings.
We have our 10-week-old basset hound here. You are a character out. And you are getting into everything, as you can see. So there's the crew that have been helping out with this project today. So I'll set you down there, Winnie.
Yeah.
Don't eat anything and wreck anything. Try not to, anyway.
She's tired.
So anyway, let's get to the action here. So first of all, we have the Black Dingoes, who last year went 9-5. Their team, Justin Herbert and Dak Prescott, Austin Eckler, Aaron Jones, Dalvin Cook, Zeke Elliott. Receivers, Debo, Keenan, Brandon Cooks, and Kyle Pitts. His season, in my opinion, will determine. Actually, I just noticed this now. Will Debo return to elite status? If so, that's going to be a really good team because that's a number one. And then also, you have a lot of Chargers. I didn't notice that until now. If the Chargers are an elite offense, Keenan Allen, Austin Eckler, and Justin Herbert will be really good. But in the weeks that they aren't very good, that could be a rough week for the Dingoes. Next up, we have the team who had the first pick, Bites' Badgers, who last year went 9-4-1. Quarterback Jalen Hurts, elite talent there. Running backs, we have Damian Pierce, Miles Sanders, James Cook, and Raheem Mostert. Receivers, Justin Jefferson, Drake London, Jahan Dotson, and David Njoku. Turning point on the season for him. You have an elite quarterback. You have the elite receiver. Some other good receivers. But, is Damian Pierce a number one? If he's a number two and splitting time with Singletary, Miles Sanders, James Cook, we'll have to see how that goes. But it'll be a challenge there. But if Pierce is really good, that'll be a very, very, very tough team to beat. Next up, we have Morton's Minotaurs right there. Last year went 5-9. Joel Burrow, Derrick Henry, Travis Etienne, Breece Hall, and Gus Edwards. And receiver Waddle, Ayuk, Goddard, and Pittman. Questionable receiver strength there. Ayuk is underrated. But the season would probably, if Breece Hall is like he was last year, you have 3 elite running backs, a very good quarterback, a very good receiver, above average one in Ayuk, and then, Goddard would be fine. So that team could be, that's how that'll kind of go there. Breece Hall is really good, especially at the end of the year. He could be really tough. So we'll see how that plays out. Bernie's Bruisers, who had the 4th pick last year, had a down year, went 5-9. Kirk Cousins and Matthew Stafford. So in the division, probably the worst quarterback there, but, high floor with Cousins. Joe Mixon, James Conner, Isaiah Pacheco. So good running backs. Not elite, but very good. Receivers, one of the best in the league, Jamar Chase, Amon-Ra, Amari Cooper, Hawkinson, and Zay Flowers being a kind of underrated player there. Should be a really solid team. Could be a very, very good team if Mixon returns to form. Last year he had a really good overall year, but it was really buoyed by that 4-touchdown performance. So we'll see how, that kind of. So as I was saying, Mixon was buoyed by that one really huge performance. Otherwise, he was kind of mediocre last year. But if he does have a bounce back year, the Bruisers will be very good this year. Next up, we have Team Price is Right. There we have Mr. Price is Right. Possibly the most boomer bust team in the league. Daniel Jones and Aaron Rodgers at quarterback. Another team who kind of went, not as heavy on quarterback. Christian McCaffrey, Ramondre Stevenson, Javonte Williams, and Devin Achane. Receivers, Cooper Kupp, Mike Williams, Chris Godwin, Terry McLaurin, and Jordan Addison. Big thing will be Kupp's hamstring. If Kupp is is right, you have one of the best receivers in fantasy, but there's a lot of question marks on that team. Cooper Kupp's injury, Terry McLaurin's injury, Christian McCaffrey's injury history, Javonte Williams bouncing back from a big injury. Ramondre Stevenson with Zeke there. A lot of boom or bust. Boom, it'll be very good. Bust, it'll be rough for Team Price is Right. Next up, we have the Horn Dogs. who last year finished 6-8. Lamar Jackson, Jared Goff, Nick Chubb, Cam Akers, A.J. Dillon, Elijah Mitchell. Receiver, DK Metcalf, Chris Olave, Christian Kirk, and Sky Moore. I really like the Lamar pick as the 5th quarterback, especially. That was really good. Nick Chubb's got high upside. Cam Akers was fantastic down the stretch. DK Metcalf might have been a tad early, but he does have an immense upside. And his upside there, I mean, if DK's double-digit touchdown guy, 1,200 yards, that's going to be really... he should be able to meet his goal of being one of the best teams in the league. If not, it's possibly another 6-8 year for the Horned Dogs if he's okay. Olave, though, I mean, if Michael Thomas is hurt, which probably is happening again as usual, he could be the number 1 and DK be the 2, and it's a little bit more on par there. Next up, we have the Little Big Men, who last year went 8-4-2. Patrick Mahomes and Brock Purdy, and then a running back core of Najee Harris, Alexander Mattison, Jamal Williams, and Jonathan Taylor. Receivers of Travis Kelce, Darren Waller, DeAndre Hopkins, Michael Thomas, and Adam Thielen. That would have been a tremendous receiving core a couple years ago, but a lot of question marks now with Thielen being kind of over the hill, but number 1 receiver in Carolina. Michael Thomas, injury questions. Hopkins playing for a new offense and being 31. Waller, new team, injury history. And Kelce now being nicked up going into the season. Looks like it won't be too bad, but probably at least a couple weeks, I would think. Maybe just at least 1 week, but that'd be tough. And the other thing is if Jonathan Taylor plays, that could be really good as well. Probably going to be a trade. It doesn't seem like it's going to be a happy situation. And if there's any little nick on Taylor, I don't think he's playing this year. He'd probably be sitting out with any little minor thing he can find. We also next have the Gargactyls, or the Gargoyles, as I like to call them, Griff's Gargoyles. Justin Fields and Russell Wilson, probably the best running back unit in the league with Bijan, Josh Jacobs, Brian Robinson, and Tyler Algier. Devontae Smith, George Kittle, Jerry Jeudy, and Cortland Sutton. Turning point will be, the health, I guess, on that. He's got a lot of banged up receivers at this point in Kittle and Jeudy. Jeudy, 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks. Don't know how long he will be out exactly. And Kittle's already banged up, which is kind of the usual thing for him. The running backs will carry him, though. So the Gargos, who went 9-4-1 last year and picked up their first playoff victory. We'll have to see how that goes. But, definitely some upside with the team. Next up, we have my oldest rival in the league, Mike Smollers, who last year went 5-9. Had a big stretch in the middle of the season where he was kind of on fire and then kind of cooled off at the end. Trevor Lawrence, Derek Carr, and then at running back, probably the most questionable unit on the team for him, Jahmyr Gibbs, Rashad White, Khalil Herbert, and Antonio Gibson. Tyreek Hill, Garrett Wilson, George Pickens, and Nico Collins. Some upside, some youth, a really good receiving core. Really, if Trevor Lawrence, who's drafted in the 5th round as the 8th quarterback, can play as good as the other guys drafted in his class, the Burrows, the Lamars, the Fields, it could be a really good team. If he's more in line with the next group, the Tuas, the Cousins, might be another middling year for the Maulers. Next up, my team, who had, speaking of middling, last year was middling at 6-8. The Cardinals, though, looking to bounce back, and I am just ecstatic about how that draft went. I'm very much loving my team. Josh Allen and Mr. Richardson from the Colts. Anthony Richardson, brain fart there. Running back, my biggest question area, Tony Pollard, David Montgomery, and then a whole cast of high upside handcuffs. Hopefully one of them hits. Mostly Jalen Warren, probably the highest upside now. Receivers of A.J. Brown, Christian Watson, DJ Moore, Tyler Lockett, and Gabe Davis. Like I said, the biggest point for me will be if my running backs, if none of those hit, David Montgomery is like dollar store version of Jamal Williams. He's not going to get 70 touchdowns, obviously, but double digits would be nice, at least 8. Could be problems for me, and if Pollard is, not what he showed last year, being one of the more explosive players, that could be problems for me as well. Finally, last part, we have Dr. Dangerous, last year's champions on a superb draft last year. Went 10-4. Probably the most questionable quarterback unit in the league, Geno Smith and Mr. Pickett from the Steelers. We had running backs of Kenneth Walker, who, no offense, Dean, but I'm really hoping it's not the number 1 hope with Charbonnet. In Seattle, J.K. Dobbins, DeAndre Swift at running back. Receivers, though, as good as any in the league. Stephon Diggs, CeeDee Lamb, Mark Andrews, Deontay Johnson, Marquise Brown. Quarterbacks, if Geno is good as he was last year, that's going to be a tough team to beat, especially in J.K. Dobbins. Got high upside. Floor could be dangerously low, but I like the upside there, so I can't fault that. But the quarterbacks will be the question for him. Next up, we have Holsey's Colts, who made an appearance at the draft for the first time in a long time. Colts last year went 3-11. Tua and Deshaun Watson. Running backs of Saquon, Penny, and Kamara. So that's the question there. Is Penny going to be good? Will Kamara be good when he comes back? Last year, I know as a person who had him, he was not. He had one game where he scored 2 touchdowns, so that was supremely disappointing. But he did look better in the preseason. And then at receiver, a very good receiving core, Devontae, T. Higgins, Calvin Ridley, Mike Evans, Dalton Kincaid, especially that 1 through 4 I really like. We'll have to see how they do. As for the best pick of the draft, last year I selected right away. I said Dean's pick of Jalen Hurts at 75 was my favorite pick. There was no pick this year I really liked, and those picks I liked, but nothing like jumped off the page like that. The reason I went with myself on Josh Allen is I don't see the difference between him and Mahomes and Jalen Hurts. And Hurts went at 24. Mahomes went at like 17, 18. I said I got really lucky to get him 16 picks after Mahomes when it's really a coin flip difference there, and a couple picks after Hurts. So I was thrilled by that. Couldn't ask for better there. My favorite quarterback group, though, is probably the Colts with Tua and Watson. I did like mine a lot. I think Richardson's got a huge upside, and Kyler Murray, if he plays, which he's now supposed to this year, guy's got top 10 upside when he plays, top 12 minimum. So, if Richardson isn't a huge bust, and even if he is, if he runs, it doesn't really matter in fantasy because that's a cheat code. That'll be big for me, and I think I can challenge Josh as the best quarterback group in the league. Best running back core, the Gargactyls with Bijan, Josh Jacobs, the only team in our league who I feel has 2 legit number 1s. I think there's 8 legit number 1s in fantasy, and he's got 2 of them. So I passed on Jacobs. We'll see if I regret that later with A.J. Brown. But the way the receivers went, I don't think I will, but we'll see. And Brian Robinson upside, Algier upside. Dr. Dangerous, my favorite receiving group, CeeDee Lamb, Stephon Diggs, Andrews, Deontay, and Marquise Brown, as I mentioned earlier. So, predicting the division winners last year, I was 2 of 3 on predicting division winners and 2 of 4 on predicting who was in the Super Bowl. Division winner in the North, I'm going with the Bites' Badgers. There's a couple teams I really liked up in that division. I just like Hurts and Justin Jefferson to carry him most weeks there. In the Central Division was, I thought, the hardest division to pick. I think it's very, very even. I was originally leaning towards Little Big Men, then I heard about Kelsey's injury. So instead, I have gone with the Griff's Gargoyles to win a division championship this year. Finally, last year I picked Team Price is Right to win the division I was in. I didn't pick myself on that one. This year, though, I am picking myself on there, although other teams in our division are pretty good. Definitely, I think Dr. Dangerous deserves a shout-out on that one. I think a really good team, too. Now, the Super Bowl teams, my teams that I'm going to pick here are, as usual, this one's coming, myself as one. I'm going to pick Bites' Badgers. I really like Jalen Hurts and Justin Jefferson, as I mentioned earlier. Another team, I think sneaky good, a little bit under the radar. I don't think it's anybody really pops, but just a solid all-around team. I'm going to go with Bernie's Bruisers. And finally, mentioned it earlier, another team I think could be really, really, really good. quarterback situation pending, is Dr. Dangerous. So those are my 4 teams to make the Super Bowl this year and Super Bowl 30. If you're on the list, you have 50% chance of making it. As I've been about 50% the last couple years. So we'll see. Obviously, I'll be one. So one of the other 3, you guys are going to the Super Bowl. So anyway, thanks for tuning in. The longest show of the year I usually do. Best of luck this year. 2 people haven't paid yet. I did get word that one of you has sent in a check, and if not, I will check on the other one to see when you sent it. All right.